Today now we're going to dissect the heart. So the first thing is you should carry out your heart dissection on a tray. I'm just putting this paper on top just so we can clean it all up afterwards. Now we've already washed the heart today, so the first thing you have to do then is to be able to identify the left side of the heart from the right side of the heart. Now the left side of the heart you can tell because it's much thicker, so as I'm squeezing here there's a lot more resistance to on the other side. It's much softer, so you can see how you can indent that side of the heart here, okay? So this is the left side of the heart and this is the right side of the heart. Now you also have to be able to identify the front of the heart from the back of the heart. The back of the heart is called the dorsal side, the front of the heart is called the ventral side. Now you can identify the front of the heart because a coronary artery runs diagonally along the front from right to left. So at this stage now, you know the left side of the heart is the thicker side, you know the right side is the thinner, and you know that the coronary artery goes from right to left along the front. The next thing you have to do before you make any incisions at all is you have to be able to identify the 4 blood vessels that enter and leave the heart. Now the way that we do this is by finding out which of the 4 chambers in the heart that they are either coming into or out of. Now you remember that we've learned that the 2 chambers at the bottom of the heart are called ventricles. So we have the left ventricle here and the right ventricle on this side. The top of the heart is where the atria are. They've been chopped off generally by the time you get them from the butchers, okay? So we can use a little seeker or a needle to find out where each of these blood vessels is either entering or leaving. Remember there's 4. So we'll have a look at this first one here. Now looking at this one here already, the walls of it look a lot thicker muscle wise compared to the others, so that leads me to believe that this is an artery. Now if I insert the needle in here, sometimes it's actually easier just to put your finger into it. I can see that this is going into or leaving from the left ventricle. So it's an artery and it's coming from the left ventricle, so that's the aorta. Right, so that's the largest blood vessel exiting the heart. It has the greatest layer of muscle. So we need to remember that because we'll be labelling that later on, okay? Now, we'll have a look at this blood vessel here and see where is it coming from. So if I insert my seeker, I can see here that this is coming from the right ventricle, okay? Now, if it's coming from the right ventricle and it's an artery here, that tells me that it is the pulmonary artery. So that's the one that brings the blood from the right hand side of the heart to the lungs. Okay? So we have the aorta, the pulmonary artery. Now, on this side here, this is also going into the left side of the heart. So that is our pulmonary vein. Okay? So this is here, the top of it has been chopped off. Now we have one other blood vessel here, okay? Now this is also going into the right side of the heart, here at the back. It's not one of these arteries. This is the largest vein going into the heart. It's the vena cava. So the top of the heart here has been chopped off, so you can't see the atria anymore. Alright, so now that we've identified the 4 different blood vessels going in or out of the heart, now we're ready to make an incision in the heart. But you have to be very careful when you're cutting the heart that you make very careful incisions, because otherwise you could damage the internal structure. Now you have to name the type of equipment that you're using. So you can either use a scalpel or you can use a scissors. Alright? So we're going to make a cut on either side of the heart, straight down from the atria down to the ventricles, on both the left side of the heart and on the right side of the heart. Now you see this layer of fat on the outside of the heart as well. It helps to protect it. So just very careful, gentle incisions. Now you can see as well as you're cutting here how thick the left side is compared to the right side. Now what we hope to identify is maybe some of the valves on the inside. And that's why it's very important to make careful incisions, because if you make really thick cuts, you could actually cut some of the valves on the inside. All right. Now, these little flaps of tissue that we can see here, that's actually part of some of the valves. All right. So these little flaps of tissue are valves. Now, if this is the left side of the heart, this valve has 2 flaps of tissue. That's called your bicuspid valve. Remember, the bicuspid is on the left side. Now, if I turn around my heart and I'll put it on the right side, and again, cutting it very shallow indents, and you'll see this is much, much thinner than on the left side, so you have to be extra careful that you don't cut any of the valves. Now, again, these little flaps of tissue here, they're kind of semicircular shape. These little flaps of tissue on the right hand side, that's the valves. And remember, the tricuspid valve is the one on the right. Okay, so you can see this side is much, much thinner than this side here. All right. Now, there's one other item that we need to be able to identify, and that is where the coronary arteries and cardiac veins, where can they be found? So to find those, you have to go back to your aorta. Remember, this is the artery up here, the thickest wall, and you have to take a scissors, and we're going to cut down to the base of that, and hopefully we should find small little openings. Now again, be very, very gentle with your cuts. Actually, I think there's so much of this cut off, I think they're actually just here. I'm going to cut down another, let's see. Now, these are the actual blood vessels that supply the heart itself with blood. So, if someone has a heart attack, it's not actually that the aorta or the pulmonary artery or pulmonary vein gets clogged. It's actually these small little blood vessels, if I'm able to locate them here. Yeah, okay, I think they have one here. Now, what you could do as well is you can get a little dropper like this, and you can actually insert it into that little coronary artery. And if this heart hasn't been damaged, you can actually try and